Hey guys, going to cover lesson 2.7 today. Lesson 2.7 starts on page 70 and rolls through page 77. It is a lot of reading material, but if you'll take the time to read through it, it will help you substantially as we start solving some of the problems. So if you haven't read through it already, I encourage you to stop the video and go ahead and read through, at least do kind of a little walkthrough. I'm going to go ahead and just sort of work through some problems with you like I do. I want to kind of explain along the way. This is the type of lesson that either you really love it because there's not a whole lot of numbers involved, or you really don't because there's not a whole lot of numbers involved. There's a lot of letters, and sometimes the letters stand for something important, like C, a big capital C stands for Celsius, and L might stand for length, or a big V might stand for volume, or a big F might stand for Fahrenheit. And then sometimes it's letters that don't really stand for anything, they're just unknowns, and you have to manipulate them around. In this lesson, most of the time, you're going to be solving for an actual reason, something that you could look at and say, oh, that makes sense, why I would want to solve for it. But that's not always the case. The best way for me is just to go ahead and jump in. I'm going to do number 1 and number 2 for you on page 75, and that's 2 of your homework problems. And if you're looking for sort of a similar answer, then look on page 70 or similar example. On page 72.7a and b, they're both very, very similar. So just kind of give you a heads up on that. So let's go ahead and start with number 1, practice section 2.7. We're just going to read it, okay? So it says the volume, and then there's a big capital V. So the big capital V is the letter that they're using to stand for volume. That's why they put the big V right after the word volume. So the volume of a rectangular solid, and a rectangular solid is like this. So you have a rectangular, and then it's just a 3D shape. And I apologize for not being the world's best artist, especially on this. So there you go. There's your 3D solid. Not a very pretty one, but it is one nonetheless. Is the product, and hopefully you remember from a few lessons ago that the word product actually means to multiply. Its length, L, this is the length, multiplied by its width, W. In this little section right here, this is width, and this is length, by its H, height. Okay, so it's literally telling me that the volume of a rectangular solid is length times width times height. That's it. Okay, that is like an extremely standard formula that you will use for volume from here until you never do math again. So volume is always length times width times height. So that's sort of the first part of the problem. And then it says solve for L. Okay, so I'm solving for L. So that means I want to get L all by itself. So I'm going to start by just writing my original problem, volume equals length times width times height, and I want to get L all by itself. Well, right now it says L times WH, so I just want to divide by WH. And remember, the rule is what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And then what I really want to happen is I want things to cancel out. This W is going to cancel here, and this H is going to get canceled. So the only thing that's left on this side is just an L. That's what I wanted. So L equals V divided by WH. And if you wanted to reverse it and say L equals volume divided by WH, if it makes you happier to put the L, what you're solving for, on the left-hand side, it does me. It makes me happier. So if you want to do that, you totally can. Then it says for W, so then I have to solve for W. So there's like 3 parts in this problem. So solve for W. So I'm just going to rewrite my problem, my formula again. V equals length times width times height. And right now it says multiply, so I have to divide because I want to get rid of it. I'm going to divide by the length and the height because I want W to be all by itself. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So exactly what I was hoping to happen. The length and the height will cancel. So that just leaves me with a W on this side. So W equals volume divided by length times height. And the last one says solve for H. SOLVE for H. Okay, so volume equals length times width times height. I want to get rid of the length and the width. I want to move it away from the H. I want the H to be all by itself. When I'm solving for something, that just means you want it to be all by itself. So I'm going to divide by L and W, divide by L and W, and I'm looking for things to cancel. So boom, 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 only leaves my H. So H equals to volume divided by length times width. So when you're looking for like, what do I have to actually tell her? You need to tell me this, and this one, and this one, and this one. You solved for L here, you solved for W here, and you solved for H here. So that's the answer. It's everything for number 1. So if you're looking for an example, 2.7a and 2.7b. Let's go ahead and do number 2 together. Number 2. It says the circumference of a circle, and circumference is obviously identified as a big C, is equal to, so I'm just going to kind of go ahead and start writing. Circumference is equal to, I'm intrigued. What is it equal to? 2 times pi, so I just put them right next to each other, times the radius. Okay, another formula that you totally need to memorize. Circumference is equal to 2 pi radius. That's our circumference. You will use this forever. It's on the ACT. Then it says solve for R. So solve for R. That means I just want to get R all by itself. Okay, so here's my formula. C equals 2 pi R. I'm going to get R all by itself. Right now it says 2 times pi times R. So the opposite of times is divided by. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. I'm really hoping some things will cancel here. Sure enough, boom, 2, boom, 2, boom, pi, boom, pi. So what does R equal? R equals circumference divided by 2 times pi. And that's it. That's number 2. So I'm going to leave you alone and let you solve 3 by yourself. When you get that finished, meet me back over and we'll cover problem 7. Okie dokie, we're back with 7. So for 7, it's even easier, okay? They literally tell you what you're going to solve for. So the directions say solve each literal equation for the indicated variable. And so it says for W, like it wants you to solve it for W, and then it gives you the formula. Area equals length times width. Okay, easy. This is just a 2-dimensional shape like this. This is length, this is width, and the area, which happens to be like the space in the middle, is all, oh, I kind of went out of lines. Clearly I can't color, but that's what we're trying to find. It's pretty easy actually. So this is a standard formula. You need to know that the area of a square or a rectangle is length times width. It's an important thing for you to know. But it wants us to solve it for W, which just basically means they want us to get W all by itself. So since right now it says L times W, I'm just going to divide by L. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And then obviously the whole point is that these L's will cancel. That leaves a W on this side. So what does W equal? Area divided by length. And as always, you're welcome to reverse them and say W equals area divided by length. Easy peasy. I think you can go ahead and do problem 8 all by yourself. And then when you get finished, meet me back and we'll do problem number 9. Okay, back at number 9. So the equation for this one, you're solving for K. Okay, so it's C equals 5K plus 7. So I want to get K all by itself. Okay, it gives me the formula or the it gives me the mathematical sentence for the equation, and it just tells me to solve for K. I want to get say K by itself. So the first thing I think we should do is just get this 7 out of the way. Let's just move our 7 to the other side of the equation. And you do that by just doing the opposite of addition, which is subtraction. That's going to cancel. So my 5K is going to come down, and then my left side of my equal sign is just going to have a C minus 7. You could say negative 7 plus C, then it just gets confusing. C minus 7 is actually easier to deal with. So I've got C minus 7 equals 5 times K. Well, I still want to get my K by itself, so I'm going to do the opposite of times K, which is divided by, or the opposite of times 5, which is divided by. And look, my 5s are going to cancel, so that's going to leave me with K equals C minus 7 divided by 5. And that is how I solve number 9 4K. So I'm going to go ahead and turn you loose, let you work a little bit more, and I'm going to jump back in. I will meet you on 14. So you go ahead and solve a few, and then meet me back for number 14. So it says 4p. We're going to solve 4p. And the equation is d equals n plus 2 divided by p. So I want to get p all by itself. And right now I've got n plus 2 attached to it. And I want to get rid of it. Okay, I want to get the p by itself. So right now I have n plus 2 divided by p. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by p. I've got to get this p out from underneath, okay? And what you're going to see is that when I do that, these p's are going to cancel. So now I end up with a pd over here equals n plus 2. So I kind of like solved one problem to create another problem. It was in a fraction originally, the p was, and I had to get it out of that fraction. So I had to clear the fraction here. I had to multiply it by p on both sides because that's the opposite of divided by p. But then that just sort of attached it to this d over here. But this is a pretty simple problem to fix because this says p times d. So I want to get the p all by itself. So I'm just literally going to divide both sides by d, which will cancel these. So that leaves me with a p equals n plus 2 divided by d. And that's solving for p. So again, it's just all about moving things around to where they need to go to solve for what they're asking you to do. So I'm going to leave you alone and let you solve the rest of those by yourself. When you get caught up, meet me back and I will solve problem number 19. Okay, I'm back at 19. Okay, 19 is the potentially last one that I'm going to solve for you. So I really want you to pay attention because 19 through 24 is very similar. You just solve for something different every time. It's very important that you read the directions. It says for problems 19 through 24, use the simple interest formula, which is I equals PRT. So I equals PRT. I'm going to have to start there. Then it says solve the formula for P to find the principal. So I'm trying to solve the formula for P. So the first thing I should do is just manipulate my variables around to make it say P equals something. And then I can put in all the stuff that it's giving me in number 19. Okay, so right now it says P times R times T. So I'm just going to divide off R and T. Divide R and T. So my R and T cancel, my R and T cancel. That leaves P equals I over RT. So if you want to flip it and write it like this, P equals I over RT, R times T. Now you can throw in all of the information, okay? So P equals, it says I is 500, so I'm going to put in 500. And then it says rate is 8%. Now, big thing to notice here. When it says rate equals 8%, I can't work with a percent inside my problem. So I have to turn this into a decimal. We know that the decimal's here. We have to move it 2 places to the left. So I have to put in my invisible zeros. And here's where my decimal goes. So 8% is actually 0.08. If you miss this part, it's going to totally blow your problem. Okay, so you have to just really remember to move that interest rate. So I've got 0.08. Oh, ugly 8. Let's make it better. 0.08. And that's multiplied by time, and time is 1 year. And the time is always in years. So if it says like 6 months or something in the interest formula, then it would be half of a year. So you would use 1/2. Okay. If it says a quarter of a year, that would be 1/25. Okay. So make sure you convert it over to a year. And now this really just says 500 divided by 0.8 times 1. Well, what is 0.8 times 1 is just 0.8. So this says P equals 500 divided by 0.08. And if you put that into your calculator, and you totally can, just calculator 500 divided by 0.08. Yep, I'm a genius. It is, there we go, 6,250. So my P equals 6,250. Okay, that's my principal in this particular problem. Okay, that's my principal. Okay, I'm going to turn you loose. I'm going to let you finish those. Just convert your formula first, then put in your information and solve. And if you get to a fraction bar, it's the same as division. Just use your handy dandy calculator and you can do that. And listen to me before I log off that 25 and 26 are going to require you to use the distance formula. So instead of using the simple interest formula, you'll use D equals RT. Okay, guys, I have faith that you can solve these problems. If you run into trouble, let me know. But I think it'll be smooth sailing. Bye.